Now, while the sun is still up, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Plato today. Specifically, what is considered Plato's magnum opus, which would be the Republic. There are many opinions on Plato's Republic. Some of them, I think, would be basing their opinions purely off of surface level details. One of those may be the idea that what Plato is trying to construct is the idea of a more or less tyrannical, or perhaps not tyrannical, but totalitarian system of government. And I disagree with this interpretation of Plato. What it's about is justice. What is justice? What is the right way to live? What's the correct way to pursue justice? And what is the correct way to understand the world? It's really, this book encompasses all aspects of human life. And it is an extraordinarily complex book. On the surface, it is quite a beautiful dialogue and quite a beautiful thing to read. But every surface has a terrible depth, as Nietzsche would say. This book, you can go line by line and find things that are just, you would not have seen the first time reading it. I would say it's probably a inexhaustible book in the same way that the Bible might be. That being said, I've read through the Republic, I would say about 5 times, and I'll never be done reading this book. I try to return to it as regularly as possible. So that being said, I do not claim to have everything right in this book, but I'm going to try to tell you a couple things about it. Within this book, this is Plato working out a lot of ideas. He comes up with a couple of myths, and Plato will commonly use myths to explain some. They're spraying for mosquitoes out here. The mosquitoes are getting quite bad, but there's a truck with it's spraying chemicals, and I'm probably breathing in the chemicals right now, along with the carcinogens from the cigarette. I don't smoke. I bought this as a bit for one of my videos where I said that I don't smoke and then I immediately start smoking. That is irony. Plus it kind of looks cool, right? Cool guy smoking a cigarette. Anyways, so Plato uses myths in a lot of his works to explain complex ideas. He's borrowing from Homer here, and it's sort of an ironic version of Homer in a lot of ways, because what Homer did was become sort of to what the West later became with the Bible. It became to the Greeks, Homer to the Greeks would be akin to the Bible. Whenever you needed to know what you had to do, or if there was some tough situation, you would look to the Iliad or the Odyssey. And so art is instructive in the case, Plato's going to make the argument that art is instructive in general. Within the Republic, he is going to heavily critique the poets. As Homer says, the poets tell many lies. And within this book, Plato's going to discuss the idea of, yes, telling lies, but telling true lies. Telling lies that will instruct just action. For the people that are unable to understand the correct way of achieving just action, what we can do is tell them lies that will get them to act in such a way that they, in such a way where they, if they did know why they were acting that way, what I'm saying is not making sense. Let me think about how to phrase this. I was almost there. He's trying to get people to act, people that are ignorant of the true reasons why they should act a certain way, act justly. He's trying to get the people that don't know why they should do that, to act the same way as if they had that knowledge. And he does this through myths. Some of the myths that he creates in this book are the myth of the metals and the divided line. There's also the myth of the cave, which I would assume that anybody who's even dipped their toe into any sort of philosophical ideas will recognize the myth of Plato's cave. And what it's sort of interpreted as is escaping from the state of ignorance into the state of knowledge. And that is true. But what Plato is also talking about in this is the theory of the forms. Because what he thinks is that the things here on earth, say this cup, if I told you that this cup was the perfect cup, you would probably disagree with me. To which I would say, then you must know what the perfect cup is, right? You must have some idea that there is some perfect version of a cup, even if this is not the perfect cup. There must be some. It must be taking part in some sort of cupness, right? So that must mean that there is some ideal form of things here on earth. But this doesn't apply just to material objects. It also applies to ideas, such as justice, or justice, piety, many other ideas, right? So the myth of the cave is also trying to show you what this is like. So the sort of shadows on the cave wall are the things of pure opinion and things of this world that we can have opinions about, but through reasoning, through knowledge, we can find out about the true things, like the forms. And the thing that allows all of these forms to exist would be the ultimate form, which would be the form of the good. And the form of the good, when trying to explain it, Plato often uses the sun as an example. This is why that's why in the beginning of this video I said, while the sun is still up, we're going to talk about Plato. Because, like, if you've read the Symposium, he says his prayers to Apollo, to the sun, right? At the end of the Symposium, when everybody's drunk and under the table, he goes, Socrates drinks but is never drunk, of course, right? This means that he's very Apollonian and not very Dionysian, okay? He is about reason, whereas Dionysus, when you read about Dionysus, it's also, if you've ever read the Bacchae, the reason why Dionysus is described as being very pale is because he doesn't spend much time in the sun, right? So he's very separate from Apollo, right? The sun. And the sun for Socrates and Plato does not represent Apollo necessarily. What we can presume that Plato or Socrates means when they're praying to the sun is the form of the good. And this is going to be important for Christianity later on, because a lot of ideas are going to be sort of taken from Platonism or integrated, because you could think of the form of the good as being God, right? But he is the form of the good is different from Yahweh or the God of the Bible, because the form of the good is void of all personality. But back to what I was saying about the Republic being sort of an instruction for a totalitarian system of government. The main bulk of the dialogue in this is trying to understand why the just man, stripped of all seeming of justice, and that it has all the being, he has all the being of justice without any of the seeming of it, while the unjust man has all of the seeming of justice while having all the being of injustice. And the dialogue is Socrates trying to prove that the truly just man, is the one that is better off. Now, springing forth from this dialogue, we're going to end up constructing, I believe Socrates says, in a way that when we look at things far away, they're hard to discern. We must look closer and sort of try to digest things from a microscopic level, and start. So we're going to start from the beginning of why we should be just. And through doing this, they construct the ideal city, right? So they're going to start off with the city of bare necessity, which is just the farmers, tradesmen, people that what it is subsistence living, okay? So it's merely what people need to survive. This is sort of the beginning state where there is no luxury of any kind, nothing like that. And Glaucon, which is Plato's brother, by the way, is going to bring up that, well, this city, while it is free from injustices, because everybody is working to get the minimum of what they need, wouldn't they like to have some nice things, some sweets perhaps, some some sort of luxuries, which makes sense because Glaucon comes from a sort of an aristocratic family, and he's used to these luxuries, so he wants these things. And they're going to develop the city starting from this baseline, and they're going to start to get more luxuries. And what more luxuries mean is that they're going to have to start to get a military. And when you start to have a military force, you're going to eventually need leaders for your city. And he comes up with this idea that the rulers of the city, the most perfect version of these rulers, would be ones that are studied in philosophy, and know the form of the good, presumably. So they know the best way of going about things. And they're going to live off of a subsistence wage. This is Plato understanding the idea of surplus value. And so they reap none of these sort of luxuries that the class that actually does the working, right? The bronze class will be, they're the ones that get all of the surplus, while the rulers are doing this for the sake of their city. So it's like, which this is a idea that is discussed in book 1, actually, with Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus, in the beginning of the book, says that justice is the advantage of the stronger. And this should sound very familiar to the Melian dialogue, which is something that the Athenians, a dialogue that the Athenians gave to the Melians, and said, look, our idea of justice is that the strong do what they can while the weak suffer what they must. Okay, this is just sort of a paraphrase of that. And Socrates will eventually embarrass Thrasymachus. Thrasymachus is a sophist, and he's quite a rude individual to Socrates. But Socrates beats him with relative ease in Book 1. Book 1 serves as a sort of warm-up for Socrates. And he's going to go through and explain to Thrasymachus that since justice is a sort of art or a craft, a craft, the word would be technos, which is where we get the word technique. It's a sort of art or craft, and like a doctor. Okay, so a doctor, when they are working on a patient, their concern is not to just make money. He says there are two arts. There's the art of making money, and there's the art of the actual craft. Now, the doctor's concern is for the benefit of whatever his craft is. So that in the same way that I'm a carpenter, my job is to make the best house that I can, or do the best trim work that I can. It's not simply making money. The aim of the artist, the aim of the craftsman, is to benefit whatever he's working on. So the advantage of the doctor is to serve the patient. Okay, you understand this idea. So, in the same way, the leaders of the city, their job is to serve the demos, right? The population, the citizens. And I would very much like to. Oh, and by the way, that example of the perfect ideal city is directly connected with the myth of the metals, which I have neglected to talk about thus far. The myth of the metals is the idea of bronze, silver, and gold. Now, bronze, the bronze metal, these represent personalities. These represent drives. These represent what people love. And everybody loves something. Now, the bronze drives, those are the baser nature. These are the baser drives. The drive for sex, the drive for eating nice foods, for getting drunk. The irrational drives, essentially. And that's the bronze. And they are categorized within the city. The example that Plato's making with the city, they are the workmen. They are the citizens. They're the ones that do all the producing, and that is why they get all the surplus value, because you need to keep these people happy, because that's what they really like. They really like luxury. They really like all these things. Okay. Then the silver class. The silver class is represented by a word thumos, which means spiritedness. It's the drives that wants honor, that gets angry, that in other words, think of Achilles. He's a very thumotic man, and he's a very spirited individual. And so that's silver, and that would be the auxiliary not the auxiliary. That would be the military class of the city. I forgot to mention this before. My thoughts are a little categorized, so bear with me. But he makes it an important idea, that is that it is just to that each individual does one thing, right? That whatever they are best at, in other words, me as a carpenter, I should be a carpenter. The just thing for me to be is a carpenter, right? And that is the one craft that I apply myself to. And I'm not going to try and walk into the operating room and try to do the doctor's job, because his job is to be a doctor. In the same way, each individual class within the city will do their own things. Okay, but where was I? So we talked about the defenders of the city. They're the thumos. They're the silver class, and then there's the gold class. This represents rationality, and this would be the of the auxiliaries. This would be the rulers of the city. Their concern is with making the best decisions and being connected with the form of the good. So knowing what that looks like means that they have come to they've solved the problem of knowledge, and they understand the perfect forms, the perfect ideas of every way of going about things. So they know the perfect way to do everything, essentially. But there is one caveat with the gold class within the city, and this is why I would say that this is not meant to be realized in real life. Okay, so this is not a instruction for a totalitarian government, because Plato, and I believe Plato even mentions this in book 7 or something like that. I can't directly recall. Book 7, book 8, book 9. Okay, I know that's a lot of books, but I believe he says implicitly that this idea can never be realized within reality. But the big thing that could also key you off to this is the fact that the auxiliaries, the rulers, have two jobs, and that is to be a king and a philosopher. So this is breaking the first rule that they set before they got started. And I cannot assume that this is accidental. I think that this is very intentional. And this whole thing is meant to be an example of how we should live our lives, how we should orient our desires. The rational, the gold, should be on the top priority of the list. The spirited should be under the reign of the rational. And then the baser nature, the drive for pleasure, the base drives are underneath rationality and spiritedness, and honor, or the honor seeking. So as long as your soul is oriented in this way, you will be living a correct life and a just life. You will be a just man. What else? This is also represented in another dialogue where Plato introduces another myth, and that is the myth of the chariot racer, or the chariot driver. So there are two horses. There's a white horse and a black horse, and they're pulling a chariot. And one of the horses represents essentially the bronze, right? The base, the drive for pleasure and sort of irrationality. And then there's the spirited horse, the horse that wants honor, and the horse that wants glory. and has these sort of, spirited drives. But then the one that's actually driving the chariot would be the rationality. So this is expressed in multiple ways. That's in a different dialogue. I can't remember off the top of my head which dialogue that is. Starts with a P. It's okay. But I wanted to get into book one with you and just trying to explain sort of some of the broad ideas of the book. We're already at 25 minutes, but I will get into some of the first lines because actually the first lines are very important. So here we go, line 1. And Socrates says, I went down to the Piraeus yesterday with Glaucon, son of Ariston, to pray to the goddess, and at the same time I wanted to observe how they would put on the festival, since they were now holding it for the first time. Now, in my opinion, the procession of the native inhabitants was fine, but the one the Thracians conducted was no less fitting a show. After we had prayed and looked on, we went off toward town, catching sight of us from afar as we were pressing homewards. Polemachus, son of Cephalus, ordered his slave boy to run after us and order us to wait for him. The boy took hold of my cloak from behind and said, Polemachus orders you to wait. And I turned around and asked him where his master was. He is coming up behind, he said. Just wait. Of course we'll wait, said Glaucon. A moment later, Polemachus came along with Adamantus, Glaucon's brother. Niceratus, son of Nicias. You guys remember Nicias and the Peace of Nicias? I've talked about this before. We're going to move inside because the sun is going down, which might be a sign for me to end the video because the form of the good is no longer shining on us. But I will just say a few things before we end here on this first page. Now it's very dark in here. Turn this light on. Okay. Now this is an angle you have not seen yet. All right. Where were we? Okay. Catching sight of us from afar, we were pressing homewards. Polemachus, son of Cephalus, ordered his slave boy to run after us and order us to wait for him. The boy took hold of my cloak from behind and said, Polemachus orders you to wait. And I turned around and asked him where his master was. He is coming up behind, he said. Just wait. Of course we'll wait, said Glaucon. A moment later, Polemachus came along with Adamantus, Glaucon's brother. I can't pronounce this guy's name, so it's Nicias' son. And some others apparently from the procession. Polemachus said, Socrates, I guess you two are hurrying to get away to town. And Socrates said, that's not a bad guess. Well, he said, do you see how many of us there are? Of course. Well then, he said, either prove stronger than these men or stay here. Isn't there still one other possibility, I said? Or our persuading you that you must let us go? And he says, could you really persuade, he said, if we do not listen? There's no way, said Glaucon. Well then, think it over, bearing in mind we won't listen. Then Adamantus said, it is possible you don't know that the sun said there will be a torch race on horseback for the goddess. On horseback, I said, that's novel. Will they hold torches and pass them to one another while racing the horses? Or what do you mean? That's it, said Polemachus. And besides, they'll put on an
all-night festival that will be worth seeing. We'll get up after dinner and go to see it. There we'll be together with many of the young men, and we'll talk. So stay and do as I tell you. Now, why am I reading this? There's a couple important things in the first lines here. So he says, "Down I went to Piraeus." Keep in mind the divided line, which I haven't told you about, but also the myth of the cave. Down means reducing yourself in knowledge. It means becoming more base. Not more based, but more base. All right, there's a difference. And going up means getting closer to the form of the good, getting closer to knowledge, true knowledge. Okay, so and Piraeus is the port of Athens, where man, my back is sore. I just got done deadlifting. Piraeus is the port of Athens, where many cultures intertwine, and you think of it as sort of this crazy cross-cultural experience, but perhaps not a lot of knowledge going on there. And he comments on this festival that they're putting on and says, "Now, in my opinion, the procession of the native inhabitants was fine, but the one the Thracians conducted was no less a fitting show." Now, what does that mean? I'm not entirely sure what this means. Somebody smarter than me could correct me on this, but what it may mean is that either the Athenians have declined, and their show is, by virtue of that, their show is no better than the foreigner's show. That could be one way you could take that. That there is been a societal decline, clearly, or you could take it that Socrates' value judgment there is that more of a cosmopolitan sort of judgment, where these people are able to do it just as well. I don't know. That's just an idea, just a quick thought. What's going on with Polemachus? Polemachus is arresting Socrates. This is essentially, this beginning scene is a reference to the Apology, when Socrates is arrested and brought in to stand trial because of what has happened towards the end of at the end of the Peloponnesian War. They lose to the Spartans, and they're going to blame Socrates for being a corrupter of the youth, because he supposedly corrupted I just talked about him. I should really, anytime I need to remember a name, I always forget. God damn it. 1 second, I'm showing my ass right here. See, this is so bad. Guys, I'm sorry. I'll be right back. So Athens is going to blame Alcibiades for being the main source, the main cause of the fall of Athens, because, like I explained in a previous video, that he was essentially led the Sicilian expedition, which was a horrible military move. So therefore, since he was friends with Socrates and was in love with Socrates, and he was constantly hanging out with Socrates, and he is making, talking all this philosophy nonsense, that people are going to blame him for the downfall of Athens. Now they arrest Socrates and say that you've corrupted the youth, therefore you're responsible for us losing the war, and we have to put you to death. And Socrates says, are you sure that that I'm the only one that's corrupted the youth? Are you sure that it's not the result of all this other crap that you've been doing in the city that would create this problem? So I'm the only one, right? And they don't listen. Socrates destroys his interlocutors within the Apology, but they don't listen. And that is exactly what is being parroted in Book 1 of the Republic. One thing also, Polemachus is a young man. He's a teenager, and he has no right to be talking down to Socrates. This is a sign of poor education. There's a lot to go through with all of these books. Maybe sometime I will do a series on this. This is sort of a introduction to the book. This is an extremely complex book with a lot going on. And I've just given you sort of the broad strokes of what's happening here, and dipped your toe in a little bit. So I hope that you check this out, read it. It's worth your time. This book has influenced you in ways that you are probably not even aware of. So it is important to read at a certain point. That's all for tonight.